Well, good afternoon, listeners. You're listening to Lament of Hope podcast, and I'm your host, Danielle Richardson. And it's such a gift for me, as I've said so many times on this podcast, and you'll hear me say it so many more times, I'm sure, of getting to connect with so many different people from different backgrounds, different careers, different stories. And I'm so honored to get to just be a medium of doing that and bringing people's stories to you. And today I'm speaking to Yazdan Qafouri, who is he's primarily a theater actor, but he actually did the voice of Hama in The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim, who is the brother of Héra. And I saw the anime film, and I have to say I loved it. Um, I know it was kind of mixed reviews for a lot of people, but I thought it really kind of stayed true to the heart of Lord of the Rings, and so I loved the music, I loved just the storytelling, the world building, and I think the characters are very personable. So I say go and see it because it's still in theaters here in the US. But if you know, didn't like it, then too bad. But still, you might want to get to know the person who acted in it. So, thank you so much, Yazdan, for taking the time to be on the show.
Thanks for having me. Hello.
So, I did want to ask you because when I was looking through just all the things you've done, which are very varied for theater, because you've done Shakespeare, and then I saw you did Lord of the Rings in theater. Is that true?
Yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah, I was so there is a Lord of the Rings the musical, which
Yeah.
is something that not a lot of people know about actually. But it was done. Gosh, I can't remember where it was originally done. I think it was done in Canada originally. And then it came, this was ma almost 20 years ago now, and then it came to the UK to Drury Lane, and it was, a massive, massive show, huge budget, and it didn't stay there very long, ended up closing. And then, almost 20 years later, the producers came to a theatre that I'd done a lot of work with called the Watermill, which is a small kind of regional theatre in the southwest of the UK. And the Watermill pitched this idea of doing the Lord of the Rings, the musical, but really stripping it back and
Okay.
making it almost as if the hobbits are telling the story around a fire. And
Wow.
this theatre is actually built inside of an old watermill. So it's quite a small theatre, only 200 seats. And we transformed it over the summer. So there's like an outside area and an inside area. So we started with Bilbo Baggins' birthday outside, and then he disappears, and then we brought the audience inside and we told the story. And we did it in actor muso form. It's obviously there's music, so we were playing the instruments, singing, dancing, also telling the story of the Lord of the Rings. It was like three and three-quarter hours long, and it was a beast to do. We did it 8 times a week. It was quite a beast, and that was the revival. And since then, it's had great success. I think it went to Chicago to the Chicago Shakespeare Theatre, and then it's just been to New Zealand, Australia. I think it's going to do a bit of a world tour, then come back to the UK, and yeah, it's done really well that show. But it's good to be a part of it.
Wow. What character did you play?
I played Legolas.
Did you like it?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. It was that job was kind of a bit of a fairy tale because of the people. We became a really great family, and it was a really tough job, physically. The stamina that you need as an actor to do that show 8 times a week, almost 4 hours long, with outdoor elements, the rain, the British summertime. So dealing with all of that, we became really close, and I think my most fond memories are the people in that job. It was really good.
And you said you did that for how long?
So what was it? It was 4 months, 5 months. So I think we had
Wow.
yeah, I think we had like almost a 2 month rehearsal process because it was just figuring out how to do this story on such an epic scale really scaled down.
Yeah.
And then yeah, we ran for I think about 3 months, and so many people came. People came from across the seas to come and watch the show because it was the first time in 20 years that this had been put on again. And we really, I think, captured the magic of Lord of the Rings. So the theatre is set in Berkshire, which I think is kind of close to where Tolkien actually originally the county is this. It was either in Berkshire or somewhere else, but anyway, the countryside around where we were was almost the countryside that Tolkien himself would have been kind of looking at whilst he wrote The Lord of the Rings. So there was
Wow.
lots of really special things about it. Yeah, it was great. It was a great job.
How did you, like, as a, not just as a performer, but just personally, how did you kind of get through that though? When you're talking about 8 days a week, 4 hours a day, and then of course there's many other things that go into that, like costumes and all of that stuff. I mean, how did you allow for rest somehow, despite having to do something on with no break? Like, how do you kind of give yourself mental or even physical rest if you're constantly doing that?
I think that whilst you're doing it, you can't. Like whilst you're doing it, you have to put your foot to the floor and not let go. There are people with more difficult jobs than me. I mean, yeah, it's there are people who do way more difficult things, and it's what I've always wanted to do. And yeah, there are moments. There are obviously difficult moments, and then the people around you pick you up, and that's just the way it is. Um, yeah, like I said, I really can't complain because I have an amazing job. There are people out there who do way more difficult things than me. You just kind of get on with it, and yeah, Broadway's hard. That's what they say.
Did you always want to do theater? Because you were born in Iran, right? So how did the journey come to the UK and to theater?
Yeah, so myself and my family moved to the UK when I was quite young. So I've
Okay.
essentially really grown up in the UK. I don't really have many memories of Iran. I've always loved performing. I think I think I'm a good reader of people and body language, and I'm quite empathetic. And I think I've found that acting was something that I kind of excelled at from quite a young age. And there were moments where I could have taken different paths. There are moments where I was looking at my life, and there were two different paths in front of me. And I've always chosen the acting route, so that's kind of why I'm here because it brings me lots of joy and um, it's a craft that I love learning more about and getting better at, and yeah, it's like a lifelong journey.
Is there a role you really want to play that you haven't yet?
Oh, if there is, I'm not going to say because those things I think you should keep inside. And if it happens, then you go, "Oh, I always wanted this," but I'm manifesting it in here, but I'm not going to put it out in the world, just because it has
Okay.
to stay in here for now. But yeah, of course, there are dream roles and there are things I'd like to play, and I think that I think roles come to you. I think if you're really right for the role, people see who you are through your work and through who you are in the room and how you are to work with. And I think roles, if they're right for you and if they're really meant for you, they actually find you more than you find them. That's what I've found over the years.
So we're not gonna let anyone know so that it happens to you.
Well, I don't know. I'm just quite superstitious. I'm really, really, really superstitious. So I would rather keep. Yeah, there are obviously dream roles, and if I ever get one of them, I will say this was a dream role. But none so far have been dream roles.
When you say superstitious, like, because I know people are gonna think, like, are you the type of person that if you see a black cat, like, you really think bad luck will happen to you, kind of thing?
Interestingly, I am not superstitious about bad luck. I'm superstitious about trying to give myself as much good luck as I possibly can. Um, so I mean, it's many different things. Obviously, in the theatre, there's lots of superstitions. Like you can't say the name of the Scottish play. When you pass someone along the stairs, you cross your fingers. You say break a leg instead of good luck before a performance. And I don't know if it's different over in the States than what it is in the UK. But yeah, there are lots of superstitions in the theatre which I always adhere to because you don't want anything bad to happen while you're on stage. Um,
Why do you cross your
but
fingers when you pass someone? What does that
I
mean?
don't I honestly don't know. There are some that have stories behind them, but I was just told that by an older actor a long time ago, and it's kind of just stuck. As you just cross them on the stairs, you just cross your fingers because you're not meant to. I don't know. I don't really know, but I
Wow,
still do it.
I don't know. Maybe they do it here. I've just never heard that before. That's really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. There's lots of little things, and the big one is not saying good luck before a performance. You always say break a leg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you, when you're talking about good luck and bad luck, do you feel like you've had more bad luck in your life than good?
What was the question? I'm so sorry you broke up. Do I feel like I've had more bad luck in my life than good? No, no, not at all. I've been incredibly fortunate in my life. I think I've lived an amazing life, and I'm so grateful for my family and for the opportunities that I've been given. I just, you don't want it to end. You want to keep having good things coming your way, and I want to keep making the most of good opportunities because they might not always, your luck might change, and if it does, then you don't want to have wasted the luck that's coming your way so far.
Yeah. Do you think for you the hardest luck would be like if you couldn't act anymore for some reason?
Oh, that's sad to think about. I touch wood, like superstitious. Um,
I'll do it for you.
thanks. There's a wooden table right here. Would bad luck be not acting? I mean, there are loads of things that bring me joy in life. And acting is just one of them. Acting is one that I've turned into my job, but there are loads of things that bring me joy. My family, music, films. If I couldn't act again, I'm sure I'd find a way to still be happy. I'm sure I'd find a way to still be fulfilled. Um, life can present many challenges and things can, go from very good to very bad. So you never know. But that would be quite a sad day if I couldn't act anymore.
What do you think's been like, because you're still young, but I mean, for you, like, what do you think has been a challenge or an obstacle that you're proud of how you worked through, or something that was difficult and maybe you feel like now that you went through it, that's something you could face better if it came back. But like, is there a challenge that you think kind of tested your strength and your fortitude in some way?
Yeah, I've lived a very fortunate life, but I think as all humans do, we experience loss, we experience grief, we experience bad times. We experience, I mean, some people experience mental health issues, and that's something that I've also experienced. So, and especially with a job like this one, um, I don't know. I can't really necessarily pinpoint one specific thing, but I think the job of an actor is to live life, like really, really live life and experience life, so that you can recreate that with characters I mean it's many different things. It's imagination, it's preparation, it's many different things. But I think a big part of being an actor is living life and experiencing it, the good and the bad, sitting in those emotions, feeling them, being able to digest them. So I actually think something that has made me potentially a good actor is that ability to be in touch with my emotions. And I think as men as well, we're taught very much not to do that. Historically, we've been taught not to be in touch with our emotions, not to be sensitive or vulnerable. I actually think that that's my superpower. I think that that's what makes me a good actor and hopefully a good man too. So it's something that I am aware of, and yeah, I can't necessarily pinpoint one thing, but that's my answer.
Is it that must be hard though if you play a really tortured character or just somebody who's maybe really opposite to your personality to be, if you're putting your entire being into that, to act it so that people feel and can relate somehow, or even if the character is really, an awful character, you bring out the humanity in them somehow so your audience can understand the person.
Mm.
Like, how are you separating that when you walk off the stage and go home? Because I know I've talked to several actors of the stage, and they've said it's actually, some said, I really don't have a problem. It just turns off for me and I'm fine. But other people have said that, like, they've really struggled and they feel like the character follows them and they mentally become really sad or depressed depending on the character because of just the toll of having to replay and do it over and over and over again, and you're wanting to make sure that you do it right and do justice to it. And maybe you're changing it a little bit every time. But they found that really hard. For you, is that hard to separate, or is it easier for you to go, okay, I'm not acting now. I'm done with that.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Some pe people are very different. I know actors again who, yeah, can literally walk off stage and just be happy and bubbly and joking, and that's not necessarily how I've not reached that point yet. Anyway, in my career or in my technique, but yeah, no, I had that very experience. So I did a play called The Kite Runner. It's based on a book by Khalid Hosseini, and yeah, I went way too far into that, like way too far. And it was also linked to a lot of like trauma that I hadn't dealt with regarding my heritage. So it's about Afghanistan, but there are lots of, I feel, crossovers between Iranian and Afghan culture. We speak in Afghanistan, they speak Dari, which is a dialect of Farsi, and I spoke that on stage. So that was an interesting experience because I never really
Hmm.
spoke my mother tongue on stage. And then the character I played was the one who everything bad happened to this character. So
Oh,
if you've read the book, I played Hassan. So lots of bad things. Uh, I know listeners who are listening to this. I obviously won't go into this because I don't know what people's triggers are, but there was stuff in terms of sexual abuse and then racism, and it was really tough because
wow.
I really wanted to do well, and so I put everything into it, and then I realized that I'd given up too much, and what I learned from that job was the ability to switch off. Because if you don't, it will consume your whole life and it will make you miserable. Um, I think everyone needs to go, I think every artist needs to do that to find their limit. And I really found my limit. So I know how to kind of just just touch it instead of staying there the whole time and
Hmm.
giving myself my mind some rest. I think it was really useful. It was really difficult, but it was really useful. And then as well, sometimes you got to cheat. That's, people don't know what's going on in your head. They're seeing what's happening externally, but they don't know what you're thinking about. So sometimes you just got to cheat. Like if you need that tear to come, you gotta cheat. And no one will know. They just will see your tier. If that's what you are, if that's a beat that you got to hit, you don't always have to hit a beat like that. But yeah, sometimes you cheat as well.
When do you feel like, is it an actual physical reaction that you have when you know, okay, I've touched it, now I go down? Or like, how do you know when you've reached that? Is it just a mental feeling you get, or like a physical feeling you have, or?
I think for myself personally, I have like a constant monologue running in my head all the time about my work, about everything that goes on around me. And I find this very useful as an artist because I like tap into that inner monologue and like pick out ideas, and it's really great. But if I find that the way I'm speaking to myself starts to become skewed, or I'm viewing situations that I would view before differently and not the way I know I would do it, that's when you kind of know the lines are kind of getting a bit blurred.
Okay.
And also but I think it's a kind of a natural thing, especially if you're doing something quite emotional, because if you think about it, the stuff that, is happening is not actually happening. So essentially you're tricking your body and triggering emotional responses, adrenaline responses, fight or flight responses that are fake, right? Some people don't do that. Some people don't take it that far, but I personally do, because I find that it aids my performance. And when you come out of that, you've like created this totally imaginary scenario in which you're in danger or you're
Yeah.
upset, and you're then walking around talking to people, and it's fine, you're not in danger, but your body remembers. Your like physiology remembers what you've been through. And so for the rest of the day, you can feel really lethargic, or your mood can swing really rapidly. And that's all because you've been through, your body's been through something traumatic, but your brain necessarily hasn't. And so there's a kind of an imbalance between the brain and the body. That's a really interesting phenomenon, I think, and something that I'm figuring out still.
Well, I was gonna say, is that different for you because you did the theater and then I think you've done a live action movie before, right? Yeah.
Hmm.
And then you did The War of the Rohirrim, which is voice acting. All very different. Did you have the same, do you feel like they're all draining like that, or are they different for you? And how much you have to put in for the performance?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I always go to work and expect to give like 100% every day,
Right.
regardless of what the medium is, whether it's big screen, small screen, voiceover, theatre, a workshop, anything, I expect to give everything. So yeah, at the end of the day, I come home and I'm tired because I've given it my all. For different mediums of acting, there's, you know, different ways of doing it. So like um, when you're doing screen stuff, you obviously start, depending on what shot you're doing, kind of what you have to do. So if it's a wide and then it gets closer and closer, and then you finish with your close up, you know that that's the most nuanced, and that's the money shot kind of thing. Um, and then on theatre, in theatre, it's about building up your day so that you get into the right place, that you're able to enter
Yeah.
that kind of headspace. And then during the show, because obviously sometimes you're off stage, sometimes you go backstage, remaining in that headspace as you move around the theatre, or leaving it if you need to, and then getting back into it. So yeah, I mean, when I come home from work, I'm always tired because I obviously want to give it everything, so it doesn't really matter.
Do you have a favorite medium of acting?
Um, I've learnt to act on stage. That's where I learnt to act. I think that's really good because I think a lot of people don't get that privilege. I don't think I've done enough of the other stuff to really know. But at the moment, theatre is my home. But once I've done some more of the other stuff, then I can probably tell you a definitive favorite. But right now, it's definitely theatre.
Yeah. I mean, I have found, I mean, movies obviously are so visceral, right? Because you have the music and you have like the cinematography and everything. And so you really feel like you're in the world and you can do so much stuff and all of this. But theater, it's been such a gift for me when I get to go to a show and I'm crying because like you're watching the person and you forget for a second that you're in an audience and it's just like you watching this person, or there's a monologue they're saying and you're like, oh my gosh, I relate to that so much and it feels like me saying that. And you have that
Mm,
moment. It's a very live human interaction, I think, with theater as opposed to like it's
yeah.
not like film's not powerful, but theater can be very powerful too, I think.
Yeah, I think when you're sat in front of someone, the human eye can tell when someone's lying in real time. If someone is sat in front of you and they're not giving you a truthful, I hate that word truthful, but I've used it now. They're not giving you an honest performance, one that's kind of connected to the text and to their character, then I think that as an audience, when you're sat right in front of them, you can tell
Yeah.
that they're lying. Whereas on, in on the big screen, there's the cinematographer has added something to it, the director's added something to it, the editor's added something to it. Everyone has created this
Yeah.
this kind of vision that
Yeah.
you're so it's easy. It's kind I think it's that's why they say it's more difficult to act on stage because there's nothing to hide behind. I mean, even if you've got a costume or a big singing and dancing number, you're stood right there, and there are people potentially 2, 3 meters away from you, and that they can tell if you're lying. So that's why you got to be good.
Did you ever have a meaningful like interaction with someone in the audience while you were acting? And you were like internally it gave you like a little glow where you're like they believe I'm really doing this right.
Oh God, I've got no idea what people think when they're watching me. Maybe they just want me to get off stage. But I did do a play recently called The History Boys, and my character um, was quote unquote the narrator of the piece. So I got to speak directly to the audience, quite a lot, breaking the fourth wall. And although the lights are shining on you, you can sometimes in some theaters you can see the first 4 or 5 rows. So yeah, seeing people in the audience. Seeing I love seeing people, who maybe potentially look like a similar heritage to me, brown people. I love seeing that in the audience. I also have this like eye for Iranian people. Like if I think you're Iranian, I can kind of tell, and I'll send you something because I'm like I think you're Iranian. And yeah, it's great seeing like diverse audiences. I think in the UK the stuff that I do, we get a lot of diverse people, like a diverse range of people coming to watch, and that's really joyous because it means that what we're doing is working.
I didn't know is there a large Iranian population in the UK?
No, no, it's quite small. I wouldn't. I think in America there's a lot more,
Okay.
um, but there are pockets, and there are pockets in London, and there are kind of areas that there are more Iranian people. And obviously seeing my family and seeing friends and stuff, that's also quite special when you get to catch their eye. Usually I wouldn't. Usually that fourth wall is kind of shut for me and I don't look at anyone. It's like yeah. But if I directly have to break the fourth wall and I can speak to the audience, then I do look at people in the eyes. But if not, I don't.
Yeah. No, that's probably a
Yeah.
safer way of doing it. Because I'd feel like if
I don't
someone's
know.
having a bad day and they're giving you a really mean face, that would probably be very discouraging.
Oh, I never take it personally. You should see, got some audition panels that I have been to. The faces that have been staring back at me have not been very pleasant. So I think I've got used to it. As a young actor, you get used to people sitting there, looking like they don't want to be there, and you're trying to sell them the thing that you've been working on, and they don't really care.
So you have to shut off the empathy part of you,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
soft
yeah. You
part.
just don't take it personally.
Yeah.
Don't take it back. It's never you. It's never you. It could be the way you walked in the room, like, or that shirt you're wearing, or how tall you are, or the way you did your like. Honestly, it can be something as superficial as that. 99% of the time, it's never your ability. You just got to keep
Hmm.
going.
Wow.
Yeah.
When you were mentioning earlier, just like the affinity you have when you see someone else who's from your birth country, um, it's interesting because for me, I mean, my origin in a way is Italian, but I am white, that's what I would be considered. And so there's so many people that look like me wherever I go, and so I don't ever really have that moment where I feel like, oh, I'm the only person with this type of color or whatever it is. And obviously it's not so much, I don't think it's so much a racist realization as it is more there's an affinity when you see someone who kind of looks like you or understands your culture. Um, and so for you, where this is not the case, it's not the same for you. You're in a country where a lot of people don't look like you, don't have the same culture, wouldn't really understand the culture that you come from. And it's not that they treat you badly or anything, but you just don't have that commonality that you would have with like your family. Um, like how does that feel for you? Like, does it? Is there times when when you're sad and you wish there was more of a connection that you could have with people who looked more and talked more and understood your culture? Or for you, is it not really, it doesn't really matter for you? Or do you really miss sometimes just that affinity that you could have if you were with a lot of people who understand and have gone through the same experience as you?
Yeah, beautiful question, really well put. I I think it's something that people don't really understand if you've not experienced it yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
look, I would also say that I can be quite white passing, especially if it's the winter time and I've not seen any sunshine in quite a long time and I shave. I could maybe pass as someone Caucasian, but a lot of the times, yeah, I do look Iranian. And that is the thing. Like, I think people don't really know that part of the world very well. I was personally, I recently did some traveling. I went to Southeast Asia and spoke to a lot of people there, and they were talking to me about the differences in just the kind of slight variations in the way people look from different Southeast Asian countries. Like a Vietnamese person might look slightly different to a Japanese person or a
Yeah.
Filipino. And it's the same in the Middle East. So, Iranians look slightly different to Egyptians, look slightly different to Afghans, look slightly different to Iraqis. So yeah, there's that. But um, I have had moments where I've been in places that have been full of Iranians I didn't know. And I was in a restaurant in Istanbul and I was sat in this restaurant and everyone around me was speaking Farsi. And all the boys looked like me and all the girls looked like the women in my family. And you just hear people talking and I could close my eyes and imagine that I might have been in Iran. And that was a really, really profound. I didn't realize what I'd been missing because I've just kind of grown up, pardon me, in in a place where that's not the case. I grew up in quite a rural area in the northeast of England where basically everyone was white apart from my family. Um, and like you say, I've never necessarily. I mean, there have been racist incidents in my upbringing for sure,
Yeah.
and I have been, at the end of like verbal and physical abuse because of my race for sure. But on the whole, I've had an amazing. I think I've had a great upbringing and a great childhood. Um, but so yeah, it's not necessarily like people are treating me badly. It's just that that understanding necessarily isn't there. But I don't expect anyone to understand. And I think I've accepted my Britishness more and more as I get older because that's just who I am. I have a lot of British friends. I have some Iranian friends, and it's it's not if I am having a bad day, I don't go, oh, do I go to my Iranian friend or do I go to my British friend? I go, who will understand this? It's
Right.
like
Yeah.
in anything. So yeah, that's I guess the answer to your question.
Well, I was gonna say because I don't know a lot about the Iranian culture at all. Is there something that you really and not to be like this is not to be prideful when you say this, like is there something you think Iranians do so well that you wish other cultures would adopt or like you're like this I'm very proud of. I really like this about my culture.
Oh gosh, I don't know actually. I've never really thought about that. I think Iranians are quite hospitable people. Um, I think we welcome people into our families and into our homes very easily, and we really show up for people. I think that's a trait. I mean, might just be my family, but that's a trait about Iranians that I love. Our food is magnificent. Um, and yeah, we have a rich and ancient culture and a tapestry of like poems and art and love stories and epics that I think have yet to be brought to a Western audience, but I think that it will happen. I have a feeling that it will happen, and that the West will be acquainted with um, ancient Persian epics the way they've been acquainted with ancient Greek epics, and I think I'm really excited for that part of history to begin.
What is a good, I mean, obviously you can't tell the whole thing, but like What is a good short like love story or a story you really like from Iranian culture that maybe you grew up listening to a lot or is just you think is a really neat story?
Oh gosh, how long do you have? There are loads of lovers in in our kind of stories. I mean, I might be getting this wrong. I mean, these are just stories that I've been told by my parents, so I might be getting this wrong. But there's a guy who loved this woman, but she was on the other side of a mountain, and so he like essentially mines through this mountain to try and get to her. I don't know if he ever gets there. I don't know the end story. There's Layli and Majnun,
Wait,
the
you
two
don't know if
lovers.
he gets there?
Yeah, I don't know the end. I don't know. I mean,
Oh,
someone's gonna have to go and yeah, look
you
this
don't
up.
remember the end or there is an
I
end?
don't remember.
Okay.
I think he dies. I think he doesn't get there.
That's
I
so
think it's
sad.
also yeah, but I think it's also a metaphor about loving God. I think
Oh.
that's kind of in there because it's like loving God is a lifelong endeavor that you'll never actually reach. It's like God is always going to be out of your reach, but you always have to and strive to like love them. Um,
Hmm.
there's Layli and Majnun, and there's many different versions of the story about how Majnun is crazy in love with this girl called Layli, and I don't want to get it wrong, so I'm not going to say it, but I know like four different versions of the story. My favorite one is probably one that I grew up listening to is Rostam and Sohrab, and it's one that is actually in the Kite Runner as well. It follows an army general Rostam who um, uh, I think attacks this place one time and sleeps with this woman, and he leaves, and this woman has a child that he doesn't know about. That child grows up, and then one day Rostam comes back to this same place to attack this city, and instead of the armies fighting each other, he challenges their best fighter, and so this guy called Sohrab steps out, and then they fight each other, and oh no, who kills who? Oh no, this is so bad. I'm such a bad Iranian. Um,
You can't do this to us.
wait, no,
You
no, no,
gotta
wait.
know the end.
I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember. Oh, this is so bad. You're gonna have to cut this. Um, I don't want to get it wrong, so I'm actually gonna look it up because if I get this wrong, everyone will hate me. Um, essentially one of them dies and then they realize that they were father and son and it's very sad.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Well, that's at least a
yes.
little bit more. I mean, I guess it's sad either way, so whoever dies, it was kind of sad.
Oh yeah, sorry. The father kills the son. Rostam kills Sohrab.
Oh no,
That's it.
and he finds out that he's his son.
He finds out. I think he's wearing something that his mum gave him that represents that.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, that's how he knows.
And these are your like legends.
I am such a bad Iranian for forgetting that. How
No.
bad is that? It's all right.
Well, and you said these are legends. It's not, is it actual history? Are they based on historical events? Or are they like legends from?
Rostam and Sohrab is part of Ferdowsi's Shahnameh, which is which is I think one of the longest poems ever written. It's 50,000 lines.
Oh wow.
And it follows it follows the lineage of kings in Iran, but I think there's also elements of like legend in there as well. I don't think Rostam Sohrab are actually people. I think it was just a legend.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, it's I it that's I hope sometime we can do you could do a play or a movie on that. Those all sound like really compelling stories.
Aren't they just? It will happen. It will happen. It will.
Yeah.
It will. And whatever medium that is, I hope I'll be involved because I'd love to.
Now, what is something, and again, it's not to hurt your culture in any way, but what is something you think your culture could grow in that you would like to see?
Oh, that is a charged question for sure. I think this yeah, I think there are certain elements of Iranian society um that probably could do with being better. Um I mean, you see headlines of the way women are treated in Iran, the way the queer community is treated in Iran, and I think personally it's horrific. And it's something that I hope to educate people about, but also something that is deep rooted in Iranian culture, and it's rooted in the law, and so it's going to be a long journey to help right those wrongs. Not to obviously idealize Western living, but there are obviously very many freedoms that we have here that people in Iran don't have, and that is heartbreaking. Um, and although I'm, very far away and part of the diaspora, um, yeah, in my personal life, there are things that I do that I hope will make a difference to this. And then hopefully in my artistic life as well, I can start, making art about these things and being part of projects that, um, yeah, help, you know, push the conversation forward, but there's only so much you can do when you're not there, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I am in awe of the bravery of the women of Iran and the men of Iran for the way they're standing up for themselves and the way that they are conducting themselves, I think is yeah, their bravery, I can't even put into words. It's inspiring, and I've never had to experience anything like that. So they're incredible. They're incredible. Um, so yeah.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you just one last question because I'm being respectful of your time, but um, what um and this may sound like a strange question, but I always love hearing languages of other cultures because English is, I mean, I guess it's like I mean, obviously I speak it, so it sounds really boring. Um, but is there a word in Iranian that you think, for instance, when I say I love ice cream, right? I use the same word to describe how I love my sister or how I love my husband or how I love my country. And it's the same word. Now, obviously, we understand that it doesn't mean the same thing, but we don't have other words really. Like there's adjectives that you can change it, but it all means, like in Iranian, is there a word that means something, like do you say something different for each time you're referring to something like love or care or anger? Like, does it change the meaning of each word? Like, do you use a different word?
I wouldn't say that I mean I don't know maybe, but I think Farsi is a really beautiful language, and it's full of metaphors in like our day-to-day conversations that I never really realized up until very recently, and also we like to dote on each other a lot, so those words they flow quite freely in our vocabulary. Words like Azizam, Junam, Eshkam. Azizam means my dear, Junam means my life, Eshkam means my love, and they kind of flow very freely in our conversations. A great example of one of the metaphors is when you say I miss you say دلم برات تنگ شده, which literally translates to like my heart like tightens that you're not there, but it just means I miss you. And also, interestingly, dil in Farsi doesn't mean heart. Qalb is your heart, like the actual organ. Dil means your stomach. And we use that word dil to describe our emotions because we feel that the core of our emotions comes from like further down, like deep in your gut where your stomach is. That's where tears come from. That's where joy comes from. That's where love comes from, deep down. So, Dil Maratang there, which means I miss you.
Wow. See, that's the thing where I kind of wish English was like that. I guess when we say I miss you, it's nice to say, but like it doesn't have that, you know what I mean? Like what you described is like very deep. And I
It
miss
is.
you isn't as deep. It doesn't
It
really.
is, but honestly, I don't really care about the words. I care about who those words are coming from.
That's
So
true.
I never, don't know
That's
my
true.
attention, I never really even realized the metaphor behind that until someone pointed that out to me. It doesn't matter to me what you say. If you miss me and you tell me and I love you, then like that's what matters is the person, not the language in which you say it in.
Yeah, that's true. Because if someone says I miss you and you don't know them, you're just like, huh.
Yeah, but if my mum tells me she misses me, then yeah, I'm good. Whatever language that is. It's gonna, tug on the heartstrings.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Yazdan, I have to say I've loved this. I've loved getting to know more about your Iranian culture, and thank you for being open about that. And I do hope sometime in the future that I get to see, or more people get to see, a play where maybe you get to share that culture in a story. And I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I'll make sure I send you a ticket.
Thank you.
Get yourself over to the UK.
Yes. All right. Bye, Yazdan. Have a great
Thank you.
night.
Thank you. Thank you.